she made this look very easy. I had no idea what I was doing when I was scanning. She made it understandable. Thank you. Now, our second master is Dr. Scott. He's going to give us a short talk, all the information. There's so much to it. But I'll let him fill you in on this. So, Scott?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Berman, Scott for most of you. As Gary said, I am myriad in my background. My father is an FBI agent, about the most grounded human being you can imagine. Think of Elliot Ness from The Untouchables and multiply, and that would be my dad. When I explained to him about the things in the closet, the voices that I hear at night, that didn't work out very well for the young psychic. As Patrick has been coming out of the closet, turns out that that's probably what I am as well. It's a little bit of an emotional roller coaster there, because that's not really something that you can explain to a family like that. But it gave me a good background in dealing with people, gave me a good background in understanding how the world actually works, and to understand that there is true evil in the world. And my father kind of dealt with that every day. One of my earliest memories is bringing lemonade to 4 sets of state troopers sitting outside my house with shotguns, because the mafia had put a hit out on my family. And at that age I didn't understand what that was, but it kind of set the stage for a lot of what happened in the rest of my life. I've been taking martial arts since I was about 14 years old, and I never found one that's really fit to what I was doing, because I'm in my mind most of the time, and what we did was just memorizing this technique versus that technique, and honestly that was just massively boring, and it didn't seem to work very well. They would say things like, you know, hit through the hole in their defenses. Yes, but like Gary said, that's great. You know, it's like going to New York, going to the stock exchange, and somebody telling you, you know, buy low, sell high. Yeah, that's true, but it's useless information. The real information you need is why. Why brings you to how. And that's where I came to the martial art that I teach now, which is called Wing Chun Kung Fu. It was Bruce Lee's first art. It's based on concepts and not on techniques. It's based on whys and not on just this arm doing that to that person. And through Wing Chun, I was a Wing Chun master when I went to chiropractic school. And it allowed me to, the massive information they shoved into your head in chiropractic school, if you were an A student where you came from, you were a C student if you did the same amount of work. So I had to come up with a way that worked for me to study, and I came up with a way using the Wing Chun techniques which were based on efficiency. I had to understand in 3 dimensions what was happening, or else there was no way I was going to be able to answer these questions. These were not just questions A, B, C, D, or E. A lot of them were practical tests. So if you didn't understand and couldn't explain to a human being who was an older doctor who knew what he was doing, you really couldn't BS your way through a lot of that. So you had to understand in 3 dimensions. So I came up with some techniques that allowed me to study in a very efficient manner, which is another talk. So I'm going to go into that a little bit just right now. But anybody who has people who are students, I can tell you how to do that and show you how to up their efficiency in studying. That's a little bit off subject for tonight. The why is always what I teach my students, because if I just tell them to do this or that, when the adrenaline hits and they go to reptile brain, they are going to utterly forget everything they know. We all know somebody who was a martial arts master who ends up in the hospital from a fist fight because he lost. And if you don't understand why, then you can never get anywhere, and you cannot be efficient in what you do. It's interesting, the thing Ruthie gave us, because balance and stability are the basis of what we do in my martial art. And it can be applied literally to anything in your life. I've had students, one of my students was an architect. She took the principles that I taught her and she used them to be a better architect. She actually wrote an entire paper on form following function using the principles. And that allowed her to get through one of her hardest classes. So when I say the whys can be applied, they literally can be applied anywhere. So when we think about this, The idea of balance and stability brings us, sorry, I'm having hay fever all day. The balance and stability brings us back to the, sorry guys, the antihistamines have kicked in and I'm feeling a little bit wonky. That's okay. When I'm dealing with a fight, the things I want to know are, what is my opponent doing? How is he doing it? What should I do? And what can I do? Now again, fighting is not necessarily violence in the sense that I'm hurting people. Now it can be, but in the way that I teach and the way that I learned, it was more like three-dimensional chess. And when you understood the principles that drove it, especially the KISS principle. Is everyone familiar with the KISS principle? Keep it simple, stupid. What I found in my teaching and the people who came to me from other martial arts was that everything they did was this pyramid going in a fractal tree like that, becoming more and more complex as the years went by, when in fact you wanted to make things come to a point and become less and less complex and more simple. If you try and use this in real time, which is what life is all about, is using our knowledge in real time. When you make something too complex with 2,400 choices, that's a lot of choices. And even if you have a way to narrow it down somewhat, you're still going down to a very large fractal tree, and without help from Gary, it becomes quite a bear to get to the point where you need to be. So one of the things I teach my students is, in the beginning, is what I like to say is the principle of reversing our ideas. A lot of people come in with an idea of what martial arts should be, what they want to get out of martial arts. And what I have them do is I say, okay, well, if you wanted to be the worst martial artist possible, what would you do? Make a list. What would I do? Okay, I wouldn't come to class, I wouldn't practice outside of class. And they'll make me a nice long list of the things that they were, if their goal was to become a terrible martial artist, that list would give them a good starting point. And when they hand me the list and we go over it in class, I simply tell them, say, okay, now reverse that. And that seems to help people with the path that they're going to take, because it kind of cuts through the BS of what they have perceived martial arts to be, and allows them to kind of travel forward and gives them kind of an outline of what we need to be doing. So whenever they start to fall off the path, I can always say, well, I said, are you going to follow, which list are you following? The one to be the worst martial artist, or do you want to follow the one to be the best martial artist? And that usually tends to get them right back on the path. I also use this in my chiropractic life. I'm a vetted medical expert witness. Now what that means, for those of you who don't know, is that my job was to go into court for car accidents and deal with neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons one-on-one, me against them, to show that this person had a car accident and that they deserved the treatment they got. And under normal circumstances, the lawyers are not big fans of having a chiropractor come and do that, because most chiropractors lose their shirts and lose the case very quickly. Not for lack of doing the right thing, but for lack of understanding the battleground on which they play. Most chiropractors think that by being honest, going in there and just telling the truth on what they did, that's going to be enough to win the case. And unfortunately, that's not it. You have to actually go in there with the idea that we are actually on a battleground, and to extrapolate and understand what our opponent is going to be doing, how he's going to be doing it, and therefore the answers will become clear of what I have to do. Because I'm not just fighting the opponent, I'm also dealing with the jury, who has a very bad understanding of what I do for a living. You know, most people, if they don't know chiropractors, Gary, myself, or someone else who actually is honest and good at what they do, you know, I've had it explained to me as, Dr. Mullen, you know, what I perceive chiropractors to be is like you draw a binky, you pull a dent, or you become a chiropractor. It's all in the same building under one roof. And it's about as far from the truth as you can get. But that's the perception. So I have an uphill battle to climb when I'm going into court. I don't have to just deal with the opposing expert. I have to deal with the defense lawyer who hates me. who thinks I'm a criminal. And then I have to deal with the jury's misconception of what I do. So if I didn't have a system for understanding the battlefield to prevail, I would never win a case in my life. Because most chiropractors who go in, they lose. And if you put a neurosurgeon or somebody with better letters after their name, that's what it comes down to, the letters after your name, MD versus DC, most people are going to be listening to them. So the system I came up with is, again, based on the martial art I learned. Keeping the KISS principle in mind, keeping the pathway and the battleground clear, it allowed me to take positions on the battlefield that were unassailable. One of the things I tell people is we don't fight for ground we can't keep. This is one of the things that is very difficult for a lot of people. This is also very useful in day-to-day interpersonal relationships. A lot of people I find will argue just for the sake of not being wrong. And in my relationship with my wife and my relationship with my stepson, I find it much better in the long run to not fight for ground I can't keep. If I'm wrong, say, okay, yeah, I was wrong. That didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Sorry. And that seems to help out quite a bit. In the courtroom, somebody says, well, this person had 14 other car accidents and 37 other lawsuits, and the other doctors who we went to said this. I just say, well, I'm not responsible for the shoddy work of other people. And that usually shuts down an entire line of questions that people want to ask about the other work of other people, or they take medical records I've never seen before that are 6 linear inches. And they drop them on my lap and say, well, Dr. Mullen, can you give us an opinion on this? I said, sure. I said, the day after tomorrow, I need about 12 hours to read this, and my fees are $400 an hour. And I assume you're paying for that, defense counselor. Oh, no, I'm not. I said, okay, well, then I can't give you an opinion on something I haven't read. I'm sorry. And everyone who's rational goes, that makes sense. But a lot of people, if they have that under the stressful conditions of being in court, will go, read a couple pages and start trying to pretend like they know what's in that piece of paper. And inevitably, the lawyer put at the back third the damning evidence. And that will make your life miserable if you are me. Also, they will try and say, well, Dr. Croft is a big name in our business, and I quote him quite a bit in my reports. Say, well, do you agree with everything Dr. Croft says? Nope, not everything. A lot, but not everything. So when you understand and you make yourself learn the system of trying to keep things simple and trying to see the battlefield for what it is, you will understand where you should be and where you shouldn't be. Again, it's the why, because why leads to how. And my students, once they understand basic principles of the art, then it becomes more like a chess game. A lot of martial arts, like I began, when I was a young man, I was much larger, much stronger, and we would just fight, okay? And that sounds like a good idea if you're learning a martial art, but in our world, we don't fight in the beginning because if you're fighting, you're not thinking. And thinking is the primary way to get to the goal that you want, whether it's to win a fight, whether it's to win a court battle, whether it's to learn a meditation that works for you. Because not everything Dr. Gary's teaching is going to work for all of us, but he's trying to hit the greatest number of us at one time. And that's great. So again, it comes back to center. And in fact, center line is one of our primary principles. Everything returns to center. All the energy returns to center. All the energy originates from center. And that could be a truth on multiple levels, including the spiritual. In my meditations, I found that the phrase, be a light in the darkness, kept coming back to me. And then reflecting on my life, I found that I kept dealing with entities that just don't bother most of the rest of the United States or other human beings. But for whatever reason, I thought it was kind of normal. My wife was attacked by things in front of witnesses and picked up and thrown against walls. And when I thought it was a coincidence that my wife found me, I realized that that was not a coincidence at all. So, spiritually speaking, the center is important. From a tactical standpoint, in court, it's important. And from a martial arts from martial arts idea is important. And even in studying, because most of the people who studied, they could answer a question on a test, but they didn't really understand what they were doing. And when I would go to test, I may not have gotten, A's every time, but when I left, I understood what I was dealing with, which made me a pretty good doctor. So, sorry guys. Anyway. And this also celebrates life. So this is actually kind of an outline. We actually have a stepping diagram that looks remarkably similar to this, strangely enough. The positive thinking is important. When I teach my students to avoid problems, and I want to avoid problems when I'm a person, whether it be in a fight or otherwise, the idea of self-defense in itself is a problem, because most people, if they're thinking of self-defense, are already on a defensive mindset. What I teach my students to be is to be the larger predator in the forest, or at least a predator. Because predators tend to avoid each other. They're not going to bother other predators because the risk versus reward is not a good balance. If you understand that, then you go out and you keep an eye on people. You'll watch people's body language, and body language is important in this as well. I tell my students, if you're afraid, the last thing you should be doing is hunching up, looking around furtively. The thing you should do is you should take up as much space as humanly possible, expand yourself, lift your head up, and look at people in the eye. One of my favorite stories was one of my students, before she was my student, was a little old lady, and she was sitting on a park bench, and she knew this guy was going to be doing something bad to her because he was coming at her from behind. So she turned right around, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "I know your mother." So the guy went from, she said, saw the wheels turning, he turned around and he left. That is the highest method of martial art right there. She didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to pull out a gun and shoot this guy. All she did was make him question what he was doing and whether or not it was going to be functional. And it saved her, because who knows what that guy was going to do. Another one of my students was a girl. She left a party, and a guy pulled her into the bushes. She, instead of fighting and screaming, turned around and shoved her tongue down his throat, grabbed his man parts, not in a bad way, and said, "You're the guy I've been looking for all night." She said, "But I forgot my purse. So I'm going to go back inside and get my purse, and we're going to have a great time." So she went inside and got 15 guys, and they came out and dealt with the situation. So this is the idea that I want you guys to take away, is that everything has a simple solution if you understand the whys of things. If you search for the simple solution, you will be able to find it with a little bit of practice. But one of the hardest things is finding simplicity in the life that we have. Our life is filled with complexity. Modern life is nothing but complexity. But if you can apply the KISS principle to your everyday life and look for a simpler solution to the complex problem, you will find it. Like I said, the studying is remarkable. People have done flashcards for time immemorial. Since we've had paper, people have done flashcards. And every single time I watch people do flashcards, I've seen them do them wrong. Because once you understand how the brain works, you'll understand that making 1,000 flashcards this tall and going through them one at a time is not going to get the information into your brain the way you need it to. So just a quick aside to answer the question quickly, is what you do is you take 10 or 15 of those cards and you go through them. You don't know the answer in one instant, snap of the fingers, you turn it over, you look at the answer, you put it back at the bottom until you can do that. You do that once, the second time it comes around, you do that, you put it to the side until you're done with that group of cards. Pick up another group of cards, do that. After you've gone through the whole stack like that, then you go pick up the stack and do it again. If you get them, you put them to the side, and then you have now a much smaller stack. Then you go see a movie, you go have dinner, you go on the computer for an hour, come back and do it again. By the time you do that, you've got a stack that's about the third of the ones you started with. The ones that you already know are the ones in the stack of knowns. The ones that just didn't stick are in the other stack. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's all it is. Every single person I've taught this to has gone from D's and C's to B's and A's. Again, once you understand how to do something, it will make it easier. Because your brain is all about repetition. Martial arts is about repetition. If you want to be good at something, you have to do it over and over again. Hence the meditation. Why can't I just do the meditation today? Now I'm done, yeah. No. If you get into the self-discipline of doing it every day, do it a couple times a day, I can do it in, 30 seconds, and I can do it once or twice or 3 times a day. When I seal my house to go to bed, because I live on Witch Mountain, and there's all sorts of fun shadow people wandering up on the top of that mountain. So I go outside and have a chat with them about their malfeasance and to leave me and mine alone. I do my meditation while I'm doing that, and that tends to help convince them where they should be and should not be. So the simplification and understanding the question is the most important part, because life is asking the right questions. Basics of what I do is ask the right question. That's 95% of life, is asking the right question. In the martial art that I teach, every other martial art you've ever heard of in your entire life is ask the wrong questions. They ask the question or make a statement of, I want to fight like a tiger. I want to fight like an aardvark. I want to fight like a bat. Okay? Starting from that premise, you've already limited yourself into a smaller number of possibilities. Because while I want to simplify things, I want to open the possibilities up in order for me to get closer to my solution. 2,400, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that if you can narrow it down. So asking the right questions is how you narrow that down, correct? And in my martial art, what I tell people is, if you ask the right question, you're going to get where you need to go. And our question and our statement is very simple. It's not, how do I want to fight like an aardvark, like a bat, like a tiger, a monkey, what have you. It's, how is the human body designed to fight efficiently? It's the only question that makes sense in martial arts. How is the human body designed to fight efficiently? Okay? Once you ask that question, then that narrows down from pretty much infinity to a more manageable number. Each question subsequent to that makes that number come down to a more manageable number. So the path up the mountain becomes clear. It doesn't mean you can't learn martial arts and you can't do it without asking that question. Doesn't mean you can't pay attention to what the ancients did, because a lot of what I do is all the same stuff, it's just packaged differently. But if we ask the question and we understand which questions to ask, that's the trick. So if we do this, the easiest way is to simply say, what am I trying to accomplish? Okay? What am I trying to accomplish? And why? So that's the whys. That's the Q statement. For Gary, it's the Q statement. Why am I doing this? For better quality of life, to know the mind of God, to get better at meditation, to find inner peace, all of those things. Because the why is important, and it works. It works for me. I'm about, my upbringing made me about the least likely human being to be in this class. Okay? Very unlikely that I was going to be here. Because literally my whole life I was told that the psychic stuff, the energy stuff, was all BS. It was all snake oil. It was all trying to sell you something. Even while through cognitive dissonance I did this in my personal life throughout my entire life. Energy healing, and such. So your main goal is going to be ask the right question. Keep that question simple. Because again, you can ask a very complex question and you're never going to get to the end that you need to be getting to. What do you want to be doing? What is your goal ultimately? The Q statement's a good place to start. But if it's a business or it's a skill, like I applied it to being a vetted expert witness, my questions were things like, what is my opponent doing? Which means, what is the defense lawyer going to ask me? So, well, that led me to the obvious answer of, maybe I should read, books and read depositions and see what the repeating most likely questions are. Because most likelies are going to be the most important thing in the beginning. Martial arts is the same. Most likely somebody is going to hit you with a right hand and it's going to be a circular movement. So if I don't teach my students how to deal with a hook or a haymaker pretty early on, they might be the best guys at going linear and going straight forward, but somebody's going to punch them in the head or in the circle, and they're not going to know how to deal with that. So that's the most likely in martial arts. In the court world, it's, questions like, why did you do that? It comes back to why again. Well, I did that because the patient's symptoms told me that this would be beneficial to the patient, and I rechecked every 6 weeks, and I made updates to their program every 6 weeks or so to keep them on the right track. And when we no longer made progress, then I let them go. Which is unlike most chiropractors who pretty much will keep you forever in the car accident world. If they can keep you, you'll keep coming. I had one case and the person was there for 183 visits. It was like $400 in damage to her car. Now, damage does not necessarily mean that she wasn't hurt, but she wasn't 183 visits hurt. So I had to go and talk to the opposing people for that, and he asked me, he said, Dr. Mullen, can you defend this? I said, nope, not at all. I said, I can defend this part. I said, I think this part's reasonable. And the defense lawyer froze because he was expecting me to say, oh yeah, because I was working for the plaintiff lawyer, and he was expecting me to go, yeah, I can defend every little bit of this. Nope, sorry, can't do it. So we actually won that case, strangely enough. We should have lost that case, but we won. We got lucky. But don't underestimate luck. Luck is a big contributor here. So, ask the right questions. Keep it simple, stupid. Fear is the mind killer. If you're afraid, you cannot make good decisions. It's another thing that Gary helped me with. I pretty much figured out that I was kind of afraid of every little thing in the entire world. I wasn't afraid of fighting people, which is a little strange for most people. I wasn't afraid of people trying to take my head off with various weapons and such. But I was afraid of pretty much everything else. And once I let that go, then my finances got better, my relationships got better, my health got better, everything got better. Because when a creature of any sort is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then pathology sits in. You will get pathos of one kind or another from not doing what you're supposed to do. Because I was pretty depressed about closing my office. I closed my practice in 2012 because I thought I was a shitty chiropractor. And I'm not. I just didn't need to be doing that kind of stuff at that particular time in my life. And it took me kind of a long time to come to grips with that. But the meditations helped me. So the whys are important, and always ask the right questions. I think we're running out of time, but I have more to give on this subject. If you guys have students and you want me to help you with the students, I'm more than happy to sit down and give you a little bit bullet point kind of stuff. I think I have a handout for this as well. That'll help the students learn a lot of things that they need to learn, and most of the people who do that, if they follow the program, they will do better in their school, even on memorizing a lot of stuff. Because I had memorized most of Western and a lot of Eastern medicine to be a chiropractic student and then to be a chiropractor, especially the national boards. God help them all. Questions? All right, thank you guys. Appreciate you. Anybody has any comments? Let me know.
Proved it, but with all of you here also, it's always fun to play. Thank you both. Ruthie, would you mind if I erase this?
Please.
Now, I want to get back to something right now, and we're going to go back into Edgar Casey territory. Okay? All right, so let's go back into what we've been doing. Okay? So if you'll write this down, we have the why. Okay? We have the how, and then we also have the what. Now, as a scientist, obviously when I started my research into science, I had to know the what. And that got me into how, through the equations, the mathematics, the chemistry, the biology, whatever I needed, I could get to where I needed to go. But it wasn't until I got older I began to understand there was far more important questions, and that's the why. And if there's the similarity between all of us here, it's about the fact that we're asking the why. It's the most important question in the world. We're going to start tonight with the what, and here's what we're going to do with the what. We're going to do a little experiment for all of you. You're going to choose a partner that you don't know, and at a specific time during the week, you two will call each other. or somehow communicate, or at least at that time, if you can't call or communicate, you'll take a few moments, 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll start thinking about the other person. And you'll have a book, and you're going to write down your impressions, the color of their clothes, what they're thinking, what they're wearing. Okay? You're going to start writing down, you're going to start putting power to what you're learning. Your cue statements have been for this purpose. Your cue statements have been designing to strip away the veil in the brain and heart of all the doubts, all the fears, all the angers, all the frustrations that tell you you can't do this. So we're going to prove it. You're going to do it. Okay? So, in a few moments, you'll select a partner. Let's go to someone you don't know, but only go to someone, and let me make sure we understand this. With a show of hands here, how many people will actually take 5 or 10 minutes, once, twice, 3 times a week, and work with someone? I mean, honestly, how many people will actually do that? If you won't, it's okay. If you won't, it's okay. Okay, so I want to make sure that when we choose partners, only the people that for whatever reason will do it, then work with them. Okay, because I want to make sure that you will have success. For the others, you can wait and watch when you're ready. You can do it yourself later. So we're going to choose a partner, and at whatever time you think is appropriate, you can call someone, you can both be on the phone, and you're just writing down impressions. You're not talking, you're not doing anything other than you're sensing the environment. You're creating an image in your mind of that person. You're going to go through your 3 steps of meditation. You're going to clear out the external resistances, step 1. You're going to then clear out the internal resistances, step 2, so that now there's nothing to stop you from sensing that person and saying whatever the impressions are and begin writing them down. Okay, so the how is exactly what I just said. You're going to go through your 3-step meditation, and then you're going to sense that person, and you're going to write down whatever you think is appropriate. Now, you don't have to say anything to that person, please.
Is that before you talk to them or after?
Now, if, let's say you agree to call at a specific time, so you're both on the phone, put the phone down, and you take 5 or 10 minutes, you both go into whatever meditative state you need to go into, however you want to do it, and then you start writing down the impressions of whatever you're getting about that person. It could be about the day they've had, the food they've eaten, the clothes they've worn, I don't care.
But you don't really have a conversation.
No, I don't want to hear, no conversation, because from the sense of their voice, you can gain a lot of information. We're not doing any of that. We are going strictly telepathically, okay? You can do this.
So why initiate the call? Why not just have that?
It's almost like having something in your hand that you can sense the energy of that person, okay? It'll make it stronger. Now, when you get better at this, you can do it any time of the day. You don't have to have any contact with that person. But for the time being, all you have to do is, say, "Are you ready? Ready?"
Would a text work?
Text could work, yeah, it could work. A text could work. If you're up to that, yes. If you feel like you need contact, so that you actually have someone on the other end, it could make it more powerful if you go directly voice to voice. At least, I'm here, you're here, let's get started. That's all you have to say. Okay, but any way you want to do it, that's up to you. Yeah. All right? And then the why.
Question.
Yes.
How do you finish?
Take 5 or 10 minutes, and at the end of that time, we're done.
And then you just get back on the phone and say,
We're finished.
Are you finished? We're finished?
No,
Okay.
we're finished. And just agree on a time, no more than 5 or 10 minutes, because I want to train you to be able to do this quickly. And whatever you write down, if you get nothing, it's okay. It's all right. It will come. But you've got to break through this or this, okay, which tells you that you can't do it, and then go into your meditation so things are clear.
I'm sorry, so you do your meditation first before you call,
It
or?
would be wise if you did. It would be wise if you did. Okay? It would be very wise if you took a few minutes to go through the meditation before you did this. Also, you're in a highly vulnerable state when you start doing this work, and now you've stripped yourself away from all the veils of all these things that you can't do. You're in a vulnerable state. I want to make sure you go through those 3 steps to protect you from demons, dark forces, and other things around you. By securing yourself in that sphere, and knowing that it's only you and God there, you are protected from anything that will want to get in to create a problem. Okay, this is the problems that people have had in the past doing psychic work. Okay, we're going to avoid all that. So remember those 3 steps, they're important.
Okay, so now we're doing the meditation, then we're calling the person. We've set a time with them. We're doing the meditation, then we call the person, and while we have them on the phone, we are writing down our impression
That's right.
at
That's
that
it.
time, and
That's it.
then we're finished.
We're finished. No
Okay.
conversation, nothing. Okay? Now, if later, suppose you get nothing during this 5 minutes or so, no big deal. No big deal. Open your mind and get out of the judgment mode or the fear mode, and at some point later, maybe an hour later, some things will come to you, you can write them down. I don't care. But you've got to learn that you can do this. This is important. This is very important. You have the skills now, and you've cleared enough away doing your accused statements to get us to this point, otherwise this wouldn't have come to me. Yeah. Yes, Sam?
So are we
Which
gonna-
might stand, so.
So are we gonna find out if we were right? Are we talking to him again?
What I would do is, at the end of the week, if, say you contact each other 2 or 3 times during the week, at the end of the week, agree to maybe talk to each other for a few minutes and just say, okay, Wednesday night I scanned this from you, does that make any sense? Thursday night I scanned that from you, does that make any sense? Or you were wearing red during this particular time, or whatever it is, yes, yes. Contact each other once at the end of the week, or certainly before class, so that you can get an idea of where you're going with things. Yeah, am I making sense?
So the
That's what I said.
meditation that we do before we call is just our regular, with our cue statement,
Right.
just the basic things, and
Right.
then you complete, so you just do what you
That,
normally
we're
do.
doing it just like we normally do it. So why are we doing this? Why? What's the reason?
No view.
We're not doing good. Why else? We can't. Right. But why is that important for us to be able to do this? Why? Why? Simplify life. Right. We're now in charge of life with God. Okay. We're not victims. We're not villains. We can know the truth. We can know the truth now. We can know the truth in the future. Now that's important to me. You may have your own reasons, but this is the only reason why I do this work. I want to know. And I want to know how it can help me, how I can help you, and what we can do as strong individuals to progress this life, help our community, help the world.
Why is it important to have somebody we don't know? If you have somebody that you know that's across the country, would that work just as well?
It will. I want to give you some confidence. Okay. I want to give you some confidence. But if you can do this with people you don't know, you can get even small hits, it may encourage you to go further. Okay. I would like for us to not know the person well that you're working with, at least in the Kelly, please.
Sharon, I've done a whole bunch of this, okay, whatever, even with the sphere, okay? A lot of times I have to cut my opera cords, okay? That's what, I don't cut them, I disperse them out, because you get connected to the person and now you're carrying their baggage, okay? You're gonna release yourself from it, so they need to make a conscious statement saying, yeah.
Explain that, because that could be a very important point for some of the people here. So let's suppose you and I are doing something, okay? You're picking up something in me, okay, during this time, all right? And now we're saying good night to each other, okay, we're done. What would you do if you picked up something you didn't want to
Okay,
carry?
what I would be doing is I'd be saying, okay, now I'm gonna release my connection, okay, so that we can reconnect it at a higher level we're supposed to, or if we're not, and I usually bring in the energies, okay, from God, to give me love, light, harmony, peace, tranquility, and blessings, abundance, joy, happiness, whatever. And then I just disperse my cords and say goodbye, so long, farewell, until the next time, bye-bye. Because I don't want to have that, I don't want to have their baggage, I want to deal only with mine.
Good. Now, is that clear to everyone, what she just said? Is that clear? I mean, I'm getting like, yeah.
Do you think maybe you could come up with a statement that we could get an email on that we could follow, that would be, you know, fairly easy to remember, and that way?
Okay, here's what I would do. Intention is everything. Intention is everything. Our intention is, we're going to sample the person. That's our intention, just going to sample. And at the end of the sampling, anything that's not appropriate, anything that's not part of your why, you're not accepting. Okay? It's real simple. Anything that's not part of your why, you're not accepting. Now, you can say it any way you want, but when I scan people, I always am clear in my mind why I'm doing this, and at the end, what their purpose is and what my purpose is, and I won't accept any of theirs because of that, because their why is different than mine. Okay? Now, that's my version of it, but the intention is everything. And all you have to do is have the intention of, I'm only sampling that person, and when I'm done sampling after 5 or 10 minutes, that's it. Then they go back to their life, I'm going back to mine, and we're separated energetically. That's the intention. Good point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another thing, when I started out doing this, I would sit there and say, protect me from myself and others too, in our ignorance too.
Okay. And so you're saying, you're doing that for what reason?
That was because if there was something I wasn't thinking of, I wanted to make sure the higher source was going to take care of it for me.
Okay. Good. So is that clear, what she was saying?
She said it so fast.
I said, I would usually say, protect me from myself and others too, in our ignorance too.
And when do you say that?
Before you start.
Before you
Yeah, you could say after you do your meditation and before you start the connection.
Before you start.
Now,
Or you can do it while you're doing your meditation or your prayers.
good. Let's keep this, it's good, I understand. Let's keep this very simple. Okay, very simple. Remember, intention is everything. We're only intending to do a quick sample, 5 or 10 minutes, getting whatever impressions we're getting, then they're free to go off and do whatever they do, I go off and do whatever I do, then God blesses both of us, we're free to move on. That's the intention. We leave everything there. Am I clear about that? Good.
Well, that could be as simple as just saying, I bless you and release you, and
That's right.
move on.
That's right, just move on. Whatever you feel is important for your intention, and it's clear to you, that's all you need. That's all you need. Okay, the simpler, the better. Scott.
I have a simple solution. It popped in my head while you were saying this. My wife is really good at picking crystals. She's not great at selling crystals, so we literally have a wall full of crystals that are charged and powerful, and we got really good feedback from people before I came to the acceptance of what I was. My wife would choose a crystal, say, I got somebody from eBay who has these following problems here, you charge it. Okay. But if anybody wants to borrow a crystal or have a crystal, I'll have her bring some crystals if you feel the need to do that. They will keep the nasty stuff at bay to a large degree. Seems to be my special talent as a paladin. And I'll have my wife bring a few of those, and if that seems to help, you guys are welcome to them because they're taking up space on my wall and gathering dust. I'd rather than do something useful.
Good.
All right, there's another one.
I mean, whatever you need, whatever you want. It could be.
Citrine is very good. Citrine is very good for that. You could just kind of put it all around you before you start, put it all around you after you start.
Okay, good. Any number of things can work. Remember, everyone in this room has a divine energy, purpose, and reason for doing this. If you match that to whatever you need to do, whether it's crystals, certain oils, that oil, whatever, you're going to get the power that you need to do this correctly. But we have to start somewhere. And starting somewhere is right here, right now. Okay, and as you experiment, you'll get better at this. We want to get you to the point where you can just think and you can see the image and boom, you can say whatever you need to say. Look, there's another reason for this too. The why also takes us into the future. I also want to know the future. I mean, we've been granted all of this. We weren't put here with ignorance. Okay? We may not have the owner's manual right in front of us, but it's inside of us. Okay? We can know the future. I had a friend. She was doing some important speaking engagements over this past week. This was last week. She asked me, well, what's going to happen here? What do you see? I told her Monday after 2 o'clock this last Monday, you're going to have problems electrically with some of the projectors and things that you're using. She forgot to check that. But guess what? 2 o'clock, she's showing her slides, boom, everything stops. Okay. Now, we know this. We know what's going on. We have to get out of here and out of here. Every one of us can do this. Edgar Casey was talking about this in the 1930s. He was training people to do this. Okay? We're going his direction and further. Okay? So, am I clear about what I'm asking you to do? Am I clear? Yes? Okay? So the people that will do this, stand up, please. It's okay, it's all right. If you don't want to do it for any reason, it's okay. All right, now, look around the room, find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and get their information.
I know everybody.
That's going to be your partner. So go ahead, pick a partner.
Would you like to partner up?
Sharon, you want to partner up? Oh, yeah. I mean, we know most everybody in the room already, so, but we don't like really go out.
You want to call or?
You already have a partner, sit down. Anyone doesn't have a partner, stand
Don't know each other well.
Make sure you get the phone numbers or whatever you're going to communicate, it's up to you.
Send a text right now.
Sandra, you got nothing to do, so you got everything to do.
No, I can't do it.
Good stuff. Like I said, it's my special talent seems to be simplifying complex fighting demons. It seems to be
So, exchange information.
smite.
We need to go.
Well, yeah, it's
Why didn't you say Mary?
Hey, guys, hey, just a moment, Okay, look, you've got get the telephone numbers or whatever you're doing. You can get the information outside how you're going to do this, but get a book, and put all your impressions in the book. Date it, time it, put the impressions down. This is important. This is very important. Okay? Because you'll be amazed at how you'll forget things. Okay? All right, so do that. All right, so we clear what I'm asking. The next week we'll start checking and see how you guys are doing. All right? All right, final thing.
Hold on, listen.
Final thing. Sandra, would you please guide us through a meditation?
Okay, we're ready to whatever works.
And we'll turn the lights down.
Everybody, well, it'll all work out, don't worry about it. You can finish after class if you don't have all your info. All right, let's start with our breathing. We've been taught so well to do. Breathing in is expanding. Breathing out is relaxing. In for expansion. Out for relaxing. You're standing on a platform in the center of a large surrounding sphere. And you're going to keep expanding, expanding, expanding until you are relaxed. Take it as far out as it needs to go. External environment is purified. You're still in the center of the sphere. Within your body are the hands of God holding all the poisons that are the weeds and the roots of your resistance. God's hands are now taking from you and holding all of these limitations. Relax even more in God's presence. Using your imagination, you give permission for God to remove these resistances and to move far enough away that the physical separation from you is so large you can relax even further. We've now purified our internal environment. Now you continue to spray yourself, with your Q liquid, your Q statement, by using a large fire hose. At the same time, there are 4 large buckets surrounding you, and they're being filled with this liquid. The buckets we know are health, wealth, loving relationships, and time. These buckets are overflowing. As you spray yourself, imagine this liquid is filling up all the spaces within your body where those roots and weeds have been. Those roots, those weeds, those negative stories have left a space. And this liquid light of God, is filling up all the spaces. You have filled yourself so full that the liquid is escaping from your pores. It's surrounding you with bright light, the light of God. Continue spraying yourself. Using your imagination, you see yourself smile, and you see yourself nodding your head. You're watching yourself open and close your mouth, saying yes, yes, yes to you. See this in your imagination. Finish this by reminding yourself that you are doing items from your Q statement. Those specific items from your Q statement. As we always do, we finish with gratitude. Thank you to God. Thank you to any other entities that you've invited to support you in this. Angels, Holy Spirit, the universe. God as you understand him or her. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You have given yourself the freedom to manifest strongly what it is you want from that Q statement. You've given yourself freedom to manifest what's on your statement. When you're ready, open your eyes, wiggle your toes, do whatever himself back into this room, in his time and space.
I just wanted to clarify, when you mentioned the Q statement, we're doing the liquid spraying, all of that, and then you said, pick one statement from your Q statement and give yourself permission to manifest that?
I don't know, Sharon, sometimes I don't remember exactly what I say.
Because there's many, many statements, of course.
In the Q
on
statement, yes, the Q statement,
So I'm just like, all of them,
of course. If I said that, I apologize. Not my intention. Remember the power of intention.
okay, so
Yeah.
just,
Oh, yeah, don't,
okay.
if I said that, I'm,
Don't limit yourself.
yes, thank you.
Okay, 'cause I've been doing like.
You're fine.
Sharon, you're doing it perfectly.
Yes,
Yes,
you're
you
great.
are. You're doing it perfectly. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Can we form a chain? Sandra, thank you very much.